Hello and welcome back to another episode of Around the Horns. We're having Mondays with Coach Schloss as we usually do. Coach, how you doing? A little better after a weekend sweep, I would assume.
Yeah, doing well. A little better after seeing some sunshine yesterday too. Felt those last couple innings, I was able to take that big orange puffer jacket off and feel like a the coach instead of just trying to stay warm and survive it. But appreciate all the fans coming out, and hopefully Tuesday night weather's supposed to be awesome, so hopefully we'll have a good crowd that night.
Absolutely. And yeah, I just wanted to call out at the top. I thought it was awesome that y'all brought the student managers out on the field beforehand to recognize them and then posted about them after the game to make sure they got the recognition because it's those little pieces that help build up an entire program because I know there's a lot of work that goes in on the back end that everyone just thinks it's you and Nolan and Tulo, but there's a lot that goes into running a program. So I thought that was really, really awesome to see.
Yeah,
Um, okay.
yeah, good. I mean, just those kids are amazing, and it's like a lot of businesses, I guess, the people that get compensated or paid the least or glorified the least are the ones that do the most work, and the time in which, and they're students. I mean, these aren't graduates. There's maybe one grad student in there, but there's not, these aren't employees. We don't have a necessarily full-time paid baseball only equipment person. And so these guys have class and then they're hustling, they're doing laundry. Our facility, this is one of the needs. If people may be shocked to hear this, we actually aren't even self-sufficient in terms of laundry at Dishwalk. We have to ship. We don't have a. We have one little washer, one little dryer, and then the clothes have to be driven over to DKR and driven back. And we're trying to raise about $10 million to redo everything underneath the stadium to get us not just more attractive in recruiting, but just get us functional as an organization. And those kids have to do all that work. They throw BP, they feed machines, they shag balls, and they really make life easier on all of us. And so they should be credited every day.
Yeah. Just looking back at this weekend, y'all come away with a couple of close wins, and then y'all get the series sweep on Sunday. What did you see from the team that impressed you and just kind of stood out overall, just throughout the entire weekend, or maybe one particular game?
Yeah, I think as I reflect on the weekend, and then I don't look around at other scores that much. I'm so into our own team. But I checked a few things out after the end of the day yesterday, and especially in the state of Texas, where unless you were playing, like TCU was indoors, it was a pretty rough weekend to hit. And I think as you look back on seasons, there's an ebb and flow to some weekends. The offense is really good, and the pitching, I mean, last Sunday the offense was awesome, but man, we struggled in a starting role on the mound. We had to use 1,000 guys to get through Oklahoma State's lineup, and then you have a weekend where whether it be the conditions or just baseball or pressing or whatever you want to put on it, where we don't score a ton of runs, but we pitched well enough and we played good defense. We had a few screw ups in there. Played really good defense yesterday, and I'm watching some video. I mean, Dartmouth starters, they all did a really nice job of pitching in their own way and pitching to the conditions, and did a pretty good job. I mean, you got guys running the ball up to 94. You had guys executing. They were throwing strikes. I mean, tons and tons of strikes and tons of strikes with the off speed pitches. And if you can command a couple off speed pitches, and yesterday's starter had great ride to the fastball, like SEC type ride, not 95 with ride, but 90, 92 with good ride to the fastball. And that's good preparation for us. And so you look at that and you come out of it and you're like, man, we didn't do what we wanted to offensively, but we won 3 games. And there are other teams that didn't win 3 games or 2 games. And, not, I don't want to get in the comparison game, but just to give it perspective, hopefully Tuesday night we can put together, more complete brand of baseball, but to have a great season, you need to win the games. And at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, there was definitely some times where I was more impressed than I thought I would be with the opposing pitching, especially the lefty. I think his name was Danny Will. He came in relief on twice, and then the starting pitcher on Saturday. to your point, like he would sit 89 and he'd ramp up to 94, and like he mixed up his speeds really well just to keep the hitters just off balance. But yeah, I did not envy the guys trying to hit the ball in that cold wind. I mean,
Well, here's the other thing you have this time of year, and I think we're about finished with it. Is that was Dartmouth's first weekend,
yeah.
and so you know we had played 3 games. They had video on us, not a lot, but here's what happens: is all we can go on is what a guy did last year. Well, players change, right? Players get stronger. I thought their pitching coach was phenomenal. At least from where I stood, their pitching coach did an awesome job of having a game plan and executing it. And the starting pitcher on Saturday was supposed to be last year. He was 88 to 91 with some sink and a little slider, and he comes out and he's up to 94 with ride, and you know 2 or 3 good pitches. And so we show him just briefly the video before the game of, hey, this is who we think this guy is. Now he can change, and if he changes, he may be completely different when we get out there. And that's exactly what happened. So that's not an excuse. You have to, all players can change, but for example, tomorrow night we'll have a little bit of info from this year on Incarnate Word's pitcher, and then certainly in the Vegas tournament. And by the time we get to SEC play, you don't hide anything, right? I mean, there's nothing to hide. You better compensate and adjust, and you better have a good game plan, or you're gonna get smoked. So I think that played a little bit of role into it as well. Our players are learning that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things I was interested about is when you're seeing a team for the first time and they haven't, to your point, they haven't played yet. It's really hard to understand what adjustments they've made, what they're going to do defensively. Because I saw there was different times where they definitely were adjusting to what y'all were doing offensively, where were playing, shifted over to the right a little bit more up the middle. Um, they definitely, I mean, y'all hit a lot of hard balls, which was the crazy thing. The home run yesterday by Ethan Mendoza was 95 off the bat, just gets over the wall. I think it went 340-ish. On Saturday, he hit one 101, I mean, on the screws, and it fell short. And I was like, where, just
Yeah,
north wind at Dishfalk. So,
yeah, and that's just baseball. And I think when you're an SEC team or a Big 12 team, these websites that everybody uses for video, there's a lot of stuff on there. All of our games are on TrackMan, for example. So there's a lot of information on a team like Texas. Well, if you play at Dartmouth, or maybe you play some places on the West Coast where there's not as many games on TV, there's not as many games on video, there's not as many games on TrackMan. So your quality of your information that you're trying to create a game plan on is not good relative to what they have on you. And so that'll change as we get to SEC play, but it is a real thing. I think the leadoff hitter, maybe somebody on their team, we were kind of playing straight. One of those right-handed hitters, we were playing straight up to start the weekend a little bit. And by the time we got to the third game, we had Mendoza playing, what we call second base high. So he's not on the other side of second base, but he's almost to second base. Yeah. And if you remember, somebody smoked a ball off of Valanis, and yeah. That ball was crushed, and he was able to backhand that ball and get a big out. Well, the first weekend we wouldn't have been standing there, but okay, this is where the guy's hitting the ball. We can only go on what he did in the past, and those are the kind of things that can change over time.
Yeah. How much time? I know this is looking a little ahead, but when you get into SEC play, how much time do y'all spend on that kind of analytics and analysis of, here's how we really want to play this guy? Because I was very surprised opening weekend, even at Globe Life, where there was a lot of shifts going on compared to what we've seen in years past, and just knowing the tendencies for different hitters. But how much time do y'all spend on that kind of stuff?
Exorbitant amount of time. We have it all assigned out for who is to do what. Max Weiner has his group of guys. Myself, Garrick Mosiello, Tulo. We all look at the pitching, the pitcher, the tendencies of the pitcher, what can we do on the bases against this pitcher. Me and Garrick together look at the defense of the infield. He does the outfield. And sometimes you also got to look at your own pitcher, right? I mean, a guy like Max Grubbs, when he's going well, you have to look at sometimes what we would call a pitcher's spray chart. we had a pitcher one year or for 4 years at TCU named Preston Morrison, who
Hmm.
one of the greatest pitchers in the history of the school, if not the greatest. And he was a little sidewind and right-hander. And if you're a right-handed hitter, you couldn't hit the ball on the right side of second base. So we would just, it didn't matter what the hitter spray chart was. If he was a right-handed hitter, we just put all the infielders on the other side of second base, and every now and then he'd give up a ball to the right side. But you're going to go with what, the percentages. If 70% of the balls are hit over there, well, then that's where we're going to go. And when one trickles through the other way, it looks horrible, but you're just playing those percentages. And so, but in terms of the time, like hours and hours, late nights, early mornings, and then we all meet on it every day before a game, and we go through every hitter and say, what's our game plan going to be? And then if you see the hit, the position, our defensive players, they have a little card so that because you can't hear from the dugout, right? And
Yeah.
so they look at a card, and that tells them, hey, who's hitting and who's on the bases and how fast are they? Like, because it's important to know the speed of the runner, and then where am I going to start from a positioning standpoint? And if we want to adjust them, they're supposed to look at us, and we can maybe move them a little bit. And then they all know what pitch is coming through the what do you call it,
Oh, pitch com.
the pitch com, and then they have, they're supposed to use some baseball sense to adjust on that. So
Yeah.
and that's where the people who say, baseball's so boring, and I get it, but if you only knew what was going on in every single pitch, it's fascinating.
Yeah. You made some choices to shake up the lineup a little bit, move guys around, and give a guy a day off or bring in a guy a day in. When you're looking at doing that, how big of a difference does it make when you move a guy up or down a lineup? In your opinion, just is it sometimes it just, hey, we want to get them more at bats? Is it a confidence thing, or maybe protect a different batter that may be doing well lower on to kind of turn over the lineup?
Yeah, it's all of that. It's how's the team doing? You try to give what I would call some rope to the players who have shown you what they're capable of doing. I mean, we're 6 games in. I think Jalen Flores has proven that he can be a super competitive, confident, successful Division I hitter. He hasn't gotten off to the greatest start. He's really playing good defense, but you're trying to give him as much rope. Easton Winfield, I'm trying to do the same thing at some point, and it's also relative to who you have sitting over there on that bench, and and what they're capable of doing. In terms of batting order, again, we're 6 games in. Well, the public sees the 6 games. I've seen the 50 inter squad games and alumni game and all the other at bats that guys have had, and so you try and not jump to too many conclusions. And I don't want to juggle it every day, but certainly the same thing that goes through a fan's mind, they're going through my mind too. And
Yeah.
don't kid yourself. There are guys that are maybe hitting at the bottom of the order where I'm thinking, this guy could end up near the top, and or is it a guy that is in one role and he'd be better served, like you said, take a little pressure off of him, move him here, type thing. So I do like lineup balance if it can be achieved in terms of right, left, and switch. I think that's what the best teams do. But yeah, all those same things that you think, and that's what the beauty of baseball. It's all open for discussion, and it can all be right. No doubt about it. So basically, looking for guys to compete in the role that they're in, and then as we get more information, especially against the good teams, then we can make some bigger adjustments as needed.
Gotcha. Um, what is the commentary to a guy like Cole Chamberlain who gets a start his first of the year? But if you look at his numbers over the year, he's walked 4 times, he's got hit by a pitch, he only has 1 strikeout, so he's doing all the right things. But how do you keep him just, hey, it's gonna come, the hit's gonna come, just continue doing the approach that we want to see out of the entire team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies on the player, but for a guy like Cole, he's very self-assured of who he is, and he's a really good team guy. He understands where he is at this point in his career. We applaud both for him, and quality at bats is something we track, and his are awesome. he just had, he hadn't got a base hit yet. He hadn't had that many at bats yet. Uh, and so, and then there's other players who they see their value in getting hits, not in that quality at bat, and that's not good. You know,
Yeah.
for example, I took a peek at Jace Lavalettes stats after this past weekend. He's hitting 218, but he's got 9 walks. And so Ethan Mendoza didn't have that many hits going into this weekend, but his quality at bats were through the roof. I mean, through the roof, whether it be getting on base or hitting balls hard. And so there's a couple players on our team that they're searching for hits so bad that it's good. You can see it. They're pressing, swinging at terrible pitches instead of just letting swing at the strikes, take the balls, let the game come to them a little bit. And if you are going to rely on the hardest thing to do in all of sports, which is hitting a round ball with a round bat square, if that's going to be your thing that you hang your hat on, you are going to lead a life that is really tough. But if you look at yourself as a good offensive player, meaning, yeah, I'm searching for my hits, but I'll take my walk, or I will. Yesterday, Ethan getting the bunt down and igniting something a little bit, or I'll move, or I'll like Winfield the other night, runner second, third, nobody out. His job is to get the guy to third base. He hammers the ball to center field to get Tommy to Farmer to third base, and then we score on the contact play, and that's winning baseball. And Easton has to take as much pride in that as he does getting a hit, and that's really hard to convince a young player who wants to be great and wants, especially he came to Texas and he wants to be a great Longhorn. He doesn't want to let the fans down. And that's where I think these are long answers to your questions today, but like Augie was beautiful at that. Augie, that was his zen, was his ability to get the players to remove the result and truly just invest in winning and let everything else, fall by the wayside. And I'm trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, that reminds me of one of my funniest Augie stories was there was a big at bat and it was in a conference game and it was later in the season, so there was definitely some postseason implications around seeding. And I think it was Trace Barrera was at bat and he pulls him off to the side and you can see him just laughing and you're like, what? Why are you laughing? Like this is a really serious moment, like pivotal in the game. And afterwards, had a chance to talk to him outside the stadium, and I was like, "Hey, what did you say to him?" And he goes, "Oh, I told him a dirty joke." It was like, that was Augie for you. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the mentality of the game is so different from player to player. It's often amazing how you can get that entire group to work in a synchronization that comes together. So,
Yeah. And I
um,
think, and I think that every player is and it's going to be like this most of the season, but every player is at a different stage. Right? I mean, this time of year is different, but you have guys. I mean, Adrian is seeing the ball great right now, right? Thank goodness. And there are other guys that aren't, and there's going to come a day where more than likely that flips a little bit. So, in a perfect world, we'd love for all of them to be going. I mean, how do we feel this time last week about how we were swinging the bat against really good teams? Felt pretty good. Do we feel any differently today? It's still the same team, but the season's going to tell us who we are over the course of the entire season, not any one game or any one stretch.
yeah, awesome. Well, I know you got a lot of work to do, so I'll let you get out of here. But I did have one final question because this was the topic of conversation in the press box yesterday. Is it a foul pole or is it a fair pole in your opinion?
I mean, we've all called it the foul pole, but it's the fair pole, obviously. Thank goodness it's the fair pole. Otherwise, Ethan wouldn't have had that homer yesterday.
All right. Well, you definitely sided with Josh, so yeah, that's what a good SID does for you. He comes with the right answer. So
Yeah, yeah.
all right, Coach. Well, I appreciate it. Best of luck this week, and then obviously this weekend y'all are off to Las Vegas to take on some fun teams in Washington Tech and Illinois. But best of luck, and yeah, we'll be rooting for y'all.
Okay, hook 'em.
Welcome.